This was a team that had no business being in the NFL playoffs last season. And you Bears fans can tell me whatever you guys want to say, but you guys started the season off really hot. Despite making the quarterback change with Nick Foles, you pulled off that big upset Thursday night against Tampa Bay, and then you kind of fell off the face of the earth. Then the schedule got difficult, you started slipping up, but then to end the season, the schedule got really easy, and you guys ended up backdooring your way into the playoffs. And then you ended up getting smacked by the New Orleans Saints. So, you look at Chicago, I think that this team does have a chance of making it to the playoffs. I think the best case scenario for the Chicago Bears this season is going to be 10-7. I think 10-7. I know I had Detroit going 10-7. The Vikings going 10-7 for their best case scenarios. But I think that for Chicago, their best case scenario is also 10-7. I definitely still believe in this defense, although they are losing a good amount of pieces. You got rid of Kyle Fuller, which is a loss, but you have this great young corner that a lot of people don't know about named Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson was a second-round pick in the 2020 NFL Draft. He had the best rookie season for a corner last year, or either the second best rookie season for a cornerback coming out of that 2020 class, depending on who you ask, because also Trayvon Diggs for the Dallas Cowboys also had a really good rookie season. So you got Jalen Johnson. I think he's going to be able to step in pretty well and replace a Kyle Fuller. I think he's definitely going to be a superstar. Then you bring in Desmond Trufant. I don't think Desmond Trufant is bad. I think he's more of a scheme-dependent player. But I think he can be pretty solid as their second corner. It's not like they're asking him to be their number one option. So for the Bears, I definitely see the upside of 10-7. Now I think 10-7 really has a realistic chance of happening if Justin Fields is able to start. I don't think Andy Dalton is going to be able to get this team to a 10-7 record. Now, it seems like Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace have a lot of confidence in Andy Dalton being their starter because they have came out publicly several times this offseason and have said that Andy Dalton is going to be their week one starter. They're in no rush to get Justin Fields on the field. You see how I did that? Justin Fields on the field. But yeah, so I definitely feel like Justin Fields gives them a better chance to win and be 10-7 than Andy Dalton, because I feel like you can open the playbook up more. You can run RPOs, you can run read options with Justin Fields. Like, he just adds a different dynamic to this offense. And as a play caller, which Matt Nagy is going to be taking over play calling roles this year, I feel like starting Justin Fields makes it easier on you calling the plays. But I understand why they want to start Andy Dalton. You saw what happened with Mitch Trubisky. They threw him into the fire too early, and it looked like he was going to rebound, but he didn't. So for the Bears, I understand why they're not trying to throw Justin Fields into the fire and whatnot. And the Bears do have a pretty solid offense. Yeah, there's concerns about their offensive line, but you look at their receiving core. You have Darnell Mooney, who I'm really excited to watch. You have Allen Robinson, who's looking to get a big-time contract. You have a really good group of tight ends. On top of that, you have David Montgomery at running back, which I think David Montgomery could end up having a breakout season for the Chicago Bears this year. He was really good late in the stretch of last season when they were able to give him the football. He was getting a significant amount of touches. My worst-case scenario for the Chicago Bears, however, is going to be 6-11. I think 6-11 is a realistic scenario for the Chicago Bears that definitely can happen, because you look at Andy Dalton when he was starting the games that he was in for the replacement of Dak Prescott, because Dak Prescott got his season cut short. He played how you expect Andy Dalton to play. I'm gonna summarize it at that. He didn't win a lot of games for Dallas, but he didn't lose another game for Dallas, which is why Dallas wasn't able to win many games without Dak Prescott. Now, with Chicago, you have a roster that definitely isn't bad. You do have some weapons to work with, but the offensive line definitely is a question. I know you selected Tevin Jenkins out of Oklahoma State, which I like him a lot, but I still have more concerns about the offensive line. I just really don't have a lot of confidence in the Bears' offensive line going into this year. Then you look at this defense continues to seem like it's losing more players year in and year out. So for the Bears, as a Bears fan, well, if you are a Bears fan, you got to look at it from a perspective of this. Yes, you have Khalil Mack. Yes, your defensive line is pretty solid. You have Roquan Smith, who should have been a Pro Bowler last year. But this defense has lost a significant amount of talent compared to what it did a couple of years back in Matt Nagy's first year as head coach in Chicago. So I look at how much Chicago has continued to lose year in and year out on defense. I don't think that this is going to be the elite defense that Bears fans are expecting. I think that this defense can be pretty good, but I think it'll probably be on the outside looking in of being a top 10 defense. So my worst case scenario for the Chicago Bears is 6-11. And before I get into my final prediction for the Chicago Bears, I want to talk about my two swing games that I have for Chicago. And they're both, ironically, against the Detroit Lions. I think week 4 against Detroit is really big because after this game, you have a really difficult stretch. You have to go on the road to face the Raiders. You face Green Bay. You face the defending Super Bowl champions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, on the road. You got to face the 49ers. You go on the road and face Pittsburgh on a Monday night. You have a bye week, week 10. Then you have to face the Baltimore Ravens. Then you come back and face the Detroit Lions week 12. So you have a really tough schedule, a brutal schedule after week 4, after you play Detroit. Which is why I think that's a very key game. Because your season turns after that. Okay? You start the season off facing the Rams, Bengals, and Browns. You could go into that Detroit Lions game probably, 1-2? So that Lions game is really big because if you lose that game, you head into this tough stretch 1-3. But if you win that game, you go into that stretch 2-2. And I think for Bears fans, you probably would prefer, 99.9% of you guys would rather go into this tough stretch from week 5 to week 11, 2-2, rather than entering that stretch 1-3. Then after you play Detroit on the road week 12, your schedule kind of mellows down. So you go from extremely difficult to pretty easy. Well, I wouldn't say pretty easy, but it's not going to be as difficult as what it was weeks 5 to 11. So after week 12, after you go on the road and face Detroit, you have to play Arizona at home. You face Green Bay on the road, Minnesota at home, Seattle on the road. You got to face New York Giants to close out the year. So for me, I feel like the Chicago Bears are probably going to end up going 8-9. I feel like the Bears are not a bad team. I feel like they're in the middle. I feel like quarterback is really going to determine how far this team goes. And I feel with Andy Dalton, I feel like they're probably going to go 8-9. And some people probably feel like they can go 6-11, maybe worse. But I feel like this team has a little bit of grit about them that we saw last year when they upsetted the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Thursday Night Football. So you look at Chicago, I think that this is not a bad team. I think, like Minnesota, this is a fringe playoff football team. This is a team that definitely can make it to the playoffs, but I definitely don't feel like they have quite enough talent to get in, especially with how stacked the NFC is this year. The NFC West, oh my goodness, we didn't even talk about the NFC West yet. We're going to get into that in the next couple of days. But I like Chicago. I'm not as high on Chicago as a lot of people are, but I'm not as low as some people are. I'm like in between. I think Chicago could be a playoff team, and I also think that they couldn't be